you to come down onto the floor, just into a kneeling position like this. So I'll just get Taze to come into a high kneeling position. And we're just going to do some neck circles to start. So she's just going to pull her shoulders down away from her ears so we can all come into that position. We actually will start with a little bit of flexion and extension to begin with. So I'm just going to get you to bring your chin towards your chest and then just track your gaze back along the ceiling. So we're just beginning with a little bit of flexion and extension of the neck and just warming it up. Gaze tracks back along the ceiling. And as you take your head backwards, I want you to start to think about lifting through your chin and your jaw, perhaps feeling that stretch through the muscles in the front of the neck. All right, so we're just going to come back to the center, and now we're going to work with some rotation. So you just look over your left shoulder, back to the center and over the right, and we're just going to work one way and then back the other way. So again, just working into your capable range of movement here. There shouldn't be anything that's painful at all. Just one way and then back the other way. All right, and then we'll come back to the center, and then we are going to go lateral flexion. So ear to shoulder, back to the center, and then the other side. So we're just now working through that little side bend through the neck, one way and back the other way. And as you do this, you want to keep your shoulders down away from your ears, so you're making sure that we aren't letting our shoulders follow the head. We'll just work our way through a couple of those. All right, so back to the center, we're now going to put all of those movements together. So you're just going to bring your chin towards your chest, rotate your head to the side, take a little side bend or a nice big circle back with that head through extension. And then back the other way. So you're just going to work in one direction and then reverse that direction. So we just do a few of these, circling around one way and then back the other way. I'm going to go for about another 45 seconds. So don't worry about how many reps you're doing, just nice and slow, nice big circle. Trying not to leave out any of those movements. So we have flexion, rotation, lateral flexion, and extension. We'll just do a few more of these. You have about 20 seconds left, so perhaps that might just be one more rep in each direction. All right, so I want you to finish the circle that you're on all the way back and around to the start. And then we're going to go into a kneeling position and we're going to warm up our wrists a little bit. So I'll just get Taze to go onto her hands and knees, and she's just going to work through some first knuckle push-ups. So she's just going to leave her fingers in contact with the floor, lift the heel of the hand up and coming back down. And we're just going to work now through that, stretching out the hands a little bit, lifting the heel of the hand up and back down. And we're just going to work through perhaps another 5 reps or so. We'll just go for another 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And then I'll get Taze to spin her fingers to face back towards her knees. So turn your fingers out and your fingers face back. And then you're just very gently rocking forwards and backwards. So you're just stretching out your forearms a little bit. So just a gentle rock in and out of that position. It doesn't need to be super strong. And we'll just rock forwards and back. We will hold for about 10 seconds in the stretch in just a moment, but to begin with, let's just limber in and out of that position. All right, and now let's hold ourselves back in that stretch for about 10 seconds, just pushing the heel of the hand into the floor, and we'll just hold for another 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right, coming up, interlace your fingers and just roll off the wrist with a couple of big circles. And then from there, we are going to come onto 2 fists with the palms facing in. And now I'll just get Taze to open the back of one hand to the floor, then close that hand and then go over to the other side. So she's just alternating the hand that's opening. Now, when you do this as well, you want to make sure that the body weight stays in the knees. You're not being too heavy into your hands. So just one hand and then the other hand. And we'll just work through this a couple more times on each side. Doesn't need, again, to be super strong. If you sat at a desk and you're working on a computer all day, these wrist exercises are really important just to maintain. They're quite simple and repetitive. However, they're very important to keep your wrists and elbows healthy. All right, so just coming out of there and again, just interlacing the fingers and rolling off the wrist. So from this kneeling position, and now if you don't want to sit with your bum back onto your heels, you could come to a high kneeling position. You're going to go fingertips onto the shoulders and draw some big circles with the elbows. So we're just warming up the shoulders a little bit. So just get Thais to bring those elbows together, draw the biggest circle she can, retracting her shoulder blades. And you're just feeling like you're waking up the shoulder capsule a little bit. You're opening up the chest. You're squeezing your shoulder blades together. We'll just do a couple more in this direction and then we will change direction. So just finishing the one that you're on and then changing direction back the other way. So nice big circles around. So again, we are just trying to bring some fluid into those joint capsules and just warm them up before we come into any stronger stretching. All right, so just finishing the one that you're on, and then we're going to go back to a quadruped position. I'll get Thais to go side on this time though. And now we're just going to do some hip curls. So she's going to suck her belly button in slightly, wants to keep her back quite strong. She's going to bring her left knee towards her elbow, take that leg out to the side. At this point, she's going to lift her heel, internally rotating and taking her leg behind. And then we just reverse that, squeeze your glute. Externally rotate, pull your knee back and around towards your elbow. And we're just going to work on this side for 45 seconds from now, just limbering a little through that hip. So these are called cars. We want to make sure that we're doing these rotations just from that hip capsule, and we're trying not to incorporate our spine at all. So you should feel your glute working reasonably hard as that leg goes behind. And we're really trying to drag our knee through our hips end range of movement. Just check in with your elbows and make sure that you're not bending your arms, because that's just another compensation. And we're just going to finish perhaps the rep that you're on, back and around to the start. And then when you've done that, we'll go over to the other side. So again, we want to push through the floor with 2 straight arms, sucking the belly button in. We're going to bring the knee towards the elbow, draw a nice big circle with your knee, and then reversing back the other way. So just one way and then back the other way. So remember to breathe as well when you do this. Sometimes when we contract and we push and we squeeze everything, we hold our breath a little. But I do want you to remember to breathe. So just drawing the biggest circle you can with that knee. You have about 20, 30 seconds left. So remember, as you take that leg behind into extension, you're trying not to arch your lower back. You want to keep the movement as best you can into your hip. All right, so perhaps let's finish the rep you're on all the way back. And then just a couple more things from this quadruped position, starting with some cat-cow. So I'm just going to get, and it doesn't need to be super slow, we're just limbering through the spine. I'm just going to get Thais to round her back. She's then going to press her ribcage, belly button down towards the floor and look up towards the ceiling. So we're essentially just limbering our spine now through flexion and extension. So as she rounds her back, she tucks her tail and sucks her belly button in, and then you press your ribcage down towards the floor and look up towards the ceiling, anteriorly tilting your pelvis. So you can connect in with the breathing a little bit on this one. So you take a nice deep breath in as you look up towards the sky. Exhale as you tuck your chin, tuck your tail, and round through your spine. And we'll just do a couple more of those. After we finish this, in just a moment, we will work into our ankles and our feet just a little bit from this position as well. And that, and also do a frog stretch, and then that will finish our limbery kind of part of the class. All right, so just finishing the rep you're on there, and now let's draw some really big circles with your ankles from this position. So just lift your feet off the floor and draw a nice big circle with your toes. So just drawing in one direction to start. And then let's change direction back the other way. All right, so now you're going to tuck your toe under, so sit back onto your heels, and you're just going to alternate between big toe tucked under and then sitting onto the top of the feet. Now, if you would like a stronger stretch, when you're on the top of the feet, you can lift your knees off the floor. That's up to you. Otherwise, we're just going to literally sit from toes tucked under to top of the foot. And we're just stretching the foot now between plantar flexion and dorsiflexion a little bit. So we're just making sure that those ankles and feet are warmed up a little too. So last 10 seconds or so here, just moving between those two positions. All right, so our last limber will take us into our first stretch. So I'm going to get Thais to go into a frog position. So she might want to face the camera actually. And then from there, she's going to take her knees nice and wide. Now her ankles here, when I have a look from here, it might be hard for you to see, but her ankles are in line with her knees. She has a right angle at the knee. Her hip to begin with is in line with the knees and she's placed her elbows on the floor. Now from here, you're just going to gently rock forwards and backwards and just start to feel like you're warming up those adductors. So you can just leave your feet on the floor and you're just gently rocking your hips forwards and back. So in this position, we will be pausing in a moment after we've done this limber. We're going to be contracting and using our hands if you would like to increase the stretch to open our knees up a little bit wider. But we're going to have about 20 or 30 more seconds here, just rocking forwards and backwards and starting to wake up that tissue a little bit before we stretch it a bit stronger. So last couple of little pulses forwards and backwards here. Most of you will notice that as you press your hips back, you increase that stretch slightly. All right, so let's just settle ourselves now into a static stretch. So elbows are underneath you. Now, if you have a cushion or something and you feel more comfortable, you may like to place something underneath your belly so you can lie on it. Would you like that? Yes. So Thais is just going to use a rolled up mat here, and she's just going to use it to give herself a little bit of support in this position. You could do that as well at home. And now from here, I just want you to take a couple of nice deep breaths into this stretch. We're going to be here for a little while. So you're just trying to relax into this position. So take a nice deep breath into your belly. And as you exhale, just soften through the hips, relax the muscles into your belly. And just check in that your hips are in line with your knees and your ankles are in line with your knees. So you want to make sure that we've got that correct position. And what I'm going to be asking you to do in a moment is a contraction where we squeeze our knees through the floor. We are then going to be using our own hand to increase the stretch if you would like to, okay? So let's just take maybe another breath or two in this position. Now the contractions can be done as gently or as strongly as you feel comfortable. So you don't have to do it super intense if you're not feeling great today. So let's just take a nice deep breath in and then you're going to squeeze your knees through the floor. So I want you to try and crush the floor. Off we go for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Pause, take a breath. Now you can scoop your hand underneath and slide your knee out slightly using your hands if you would like to increase that stretch. And now we should be in a slightly stronger stretch, taking a couple of breaths. We are going to do one more contraction here. So getting ready and off we go. Let's squeeze our knees through the floor. Off we go for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Again, if you want to increase the stretch, we can just open our knees up using our hands, or perhaps you want to just hold in that position and just really try and soften for these last few rounds of breath. Now, for some of you, this is very uncomfortable. I appreciate that. And we have been here for a good few minutes now. So let's just finish the round of breath that you're on, a full breath in and out. To come out of this position, you can either push through your hands or you can rock forwards onto your belly and then just bring your knees together. And then press yourself back into child's pose and just take a breath or two in that position, just softening through the lower back. All right, so what we are going to move on to now is a little bit of a limber for hamstrings and hip flexors before we stretch those things out a little bit more. So what I'll get Thais to do is come into a low lunge position. So she's going to go into what looks like a lunge with her hands on the floor. And then from here, now a couple of options here. Thais has brought her hands to the inside of the front foot. You might put them either side of that front leg. If you feel that you struggle to reach the floor, a couple of yoga blocks or some books or something can be used here. And then she's just going to basically be limbering between what is currently a bit of a hip flexor stretch on the back into a hamstring stretch on the front. So I'll get her to lift her back knee off the floor, just straighten her front leg and then rock back into that low lunge position. So I'm going to get you guys to do the same. We're just limbering between hip flexor and hamstring. Nothing is too intense here. So you're just straightening that front leg enough to get a hamstring stretch. Now, Taylor's will straighten that leg all the way, but you don't need to do that, okay? You might just go far enough to get a hamstring stretch and then back into that lunge. And we're going to work another 30 seconds, just limbering in and out of that position. So we'll just work here, last 15, 20 seconds. Like I said, doesn't need to be super intense. You might find that you can start to increase, especially that hamstring stretch on the front, as that tissue starts to warm up a little bit more. All right, so let's finish the one that you're on, and then when you're ready, let's change over to the other side. So we'll just switch ourselves over to the other side. Hands perhaps either side of your front foot, whatever feels comfortable. And then again, from here, we're just going to straighten that front leg and then rock ourselves back into that hip flexor stretch. And we're just working here about 45 seconds, just limbering between those two positions. Don't be in a hurry to straighten your front leg. We do have hamstring stretch coming up, and we're just trying to warm up our hamstrings a little bit more. So we've got about 15, 20 seconds left, just limbering hamstring to hip flexor. So you can push your hip down towards the floor as you go into that lunge on the back. All right, so guys, let's finish the rep that we're on here. Come to a high kneeling position and just again circling off the hips a couple of times. All right, so what we are going to do before we go into those stronger hamstring and hip flexor stretches, we're actually going to stretch glute and piriformis from 90-90. Now, what I said before, guys, is if in this position you feel that you want to go into a pigeon pose, then of course you can. But we're basically, I might get you to spin the other way. Yeah. So guys, we're going to go here into 90. Now, when we're in this position, remember, we want to have a right angle at this back leg. We want to have a right angle at the front leg. If you would like to go into a full pigeon pose, go for it. You can straighten out this back leg behind. Some of you have done yoga or you're quite flexible in this position, that's fine. So what I want you to do now is just take a nice deep breath in, hands on the floor, and Tai's just going to move her forehead forwards, all right? So at the moment, her right leg is in front, so you can all join in with this. And she's going to move and hold herself in this stretch, okay? So if the right leg's in front, you should be experiencing a stretch on your right glute and piriformis, so the right hip. So once you're there, just take a couple of nice deep breaths in and pull your forehead forwards to increase the stretch. So imagine there's a wall in front of you and you're trying to put your forehead on that wall, but it's just out of reach. So what you could also do here is perhaps move your chest slightly over your foot, over your knee, and decide which position gives you the best stretch into the outside of that front hip. So everyone might find a slightly different position. And once you've found that position, again, I want you to just pause and breathe there. Now, most of you should know the drill here. We're going to do a contraction where we push our front foot. So Ty's going to push her right foot down and forwards through the floor, like she was trying to kick that leg away from her. So getting ready, let's take a nice deep breath in. And she's just going to push her foot, down and forwards. Off we go for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Pause, take a breath, and pull your forehead forwards towards that imaginary wall. We're going to do one more contraction here. So she's going to push her foot down and forwards. Off we go for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And again, pause. Pull yourself into that stretch on the out breath and just hold here another 10, 15 seconds, just breathing there. So your hips sitting in an external rotation, and that is putting glute and piriformis into stretch, okay? So that's what we're trying to loosen off here a little bit. All right, so finishing the round of breath you're on, I want you to just gently lift your chest up, And we're just going to transition ourselves over to the other side. Now, if in between you feel that you need to move around a little bit, you can, or maybe you just want to get straight into that position on the other side. That's up to you. But we'll all meet there. So we'll come around and over to the other side. All right, so again, just check for those right angles. So we're looking for 90 degrees at the knees. So the back knee has 90 degrees, the hip has 90 degrees, and the front knee. And then again, hands are on the floor, and we're rotating and pulling our forehead forwards over that front leg. Now, the position of the upper body is up to you. You might find that you can move your upper body into a position that gives you a bit of a better stretch. If you're quite flexible, you might want to transition yourself into a full pigeon pose. And then again, we're just breathing here. So take a really nice deep breath in. And exhale, forehead moves forwards into that stretch. So we're always lengthening out of the hips as opposed to just sort of rounding down over the leg. So we'll just do a few more rounds of breath here before we start our first contraction. And just observe, does this side feel different to the other? It's really common in this position to notice a discrepancy one side to the other. All right, so let's think about our first contraction. Remember your front foot, you're going to squeeze that leg, you're going to push the foot down and kick it away from you through the floor. Okay, so getting ready, and off we go. Pressing down and forwards for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Don't recoil out of that stretch, but instead breathe and draw yourself deeper into that position if you can. We have one more contraction here. So getting ready and off we go, pressing down and forwards for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Take a nice deep breath in and forehead moves forwards into that stretch. We'll just work our way through a round or two of breath before we come out of this position. Really trying to soften on these final breaths in all the stretches. You try to soften. All right, so when you finish the round of breath that you're on, I want you to slowly make your way out of that position, and you're going to come up to standing and maybe do a few little circles off with the hips. So for today, what we are going to do is we're going to stretch hamstrings by doing a pike and a straddle, and just to warm that up a little bit, we're actually going to do some standing good mornings to limber those hamstrings a little bit more, because I know these positions can be very, very strong for some of us. So what I'm going to get Thais to do is first start in a neutral foot position, hands on the hips, and if you have a look, I'll get her to turn to the side. Yep, and she's just going to essentially do a standing good morning, hands on the hips. So she's going to unlock her knees, and then her hips are going to travel backwards. She's got a nice flat back in this position. She's currently noticing a little bit of a stretch through her hamstrings, and then she's going to stand up. So this is a pike, okay? So essentially, if we sat on the floor, this would look like a pike. She's moving towards a pike position. So we're just going to limber in and out of that. So what I'm going to do is just pop time on the clock. So if you can all start and you're just working through that, we're going to go about 45 seconds. And as long as your back stays quite flat, you can limber yourself quite low into this. And for most of us, we aren't locking out the legs straight, okay? We have an unlock of the knees and we're pressing our hips backwards in order to get that stronger stretch. We're just going to work here another 15 seconds or so, just limbering in and out of that position. And then we're going to do the exact same thing in a straddle. So let's just perhaps finish the rep that you're on. And now I can get Thais to face forwards towards the camera if she likes. She's now going to straddle her legs and unlock the knees, and it's the exact same movement. But now we are in a bit more of a straddle. So you're just going to work in and out of that straddle good morning now. And again, it's going to feel not too strong, like a little bit of a limber. And this is our pancake position, essentially, if we were sat on the floor. Your feet can be as wide as you feel comfortable here. And you're just working in and out of that stretch a little bit, so it's not too strong. Remember, we don't want to necessarily lock our legs out too straight. And I'll just get you to work here another 10 seconds, in and out. drawing yourself perhaps slightly deeper each time you go down. All right, so let's finish the one that we're on. Now we are going to do a pike and a straddle, and I'm going to ask you to bear with us because Thais is pregnant and her belly is going to get in the way. Okay, so obviously we're going to do the best we can here in the gym, but I want to give you guys the option to do this. So she's going to go into a seated pike. So I'm just going to get her to sit. I'll get her to sit side on. Do you want to face that way actually? So get her to sit side on, guys. Now we're going to start with bent knees. So she's going to bend her knees as much as she needs to bring her, it's not hard for her, but for her to bring her knees all the way onto her belly. Her belly's right there, so it can just, yeah, up like this, yeah. Now she's going to hold the outsides of her feet. So I want you to reach forwards, and we're essentially holding our feet like this in this position. Now, if you guys are going to struggle a little bit, Thais is actually going to hold her ankles, okay, just because she can't reach. But I would like you guys to hold the blade edges or the outside edges of your feet, and then you're just going to walk your bum away from your feet. So you're just starting to creep yourself into a bit of a pike. Now, obviously, Thais is doing what she can in this position to work there. I might actually grab her a band. That might be a bit better for you, Thais. So you're just going to work ourselves. Now, she's going to use a bend rather than hold the feet because this is a bit easier for her. However, you guys should be fine to have your feet on your, hands on your feet, sorry. And now we are going to go to our best seated pike for today. So I'm going to put about 60 seconds on the clock. And all I'm asking you to do is just keep walking your bum backwards away from your feet. I want you to pause at a point where you feel a fairly decent stretch and just breathe into the pike. So you don't need to increase it. We're not contracting. Just breathe yourself into that position. When you feel like your body starts to soften a little bit, then you can walk your bum back a little bit more. And we're trying to think about that length out of the hips. And it's up to you. I'm not going to tell you when to increase this. I want you to feel it. I want you to feel your body soften a little, and then maybe you can move back a centimetre or two more. Now, if you're quite flexible and you have quite a good pike, think about anteriorly tilting your pelvis in this position. So twerking your butt out behind you, and that's going to give you a better pike. It's quite hard to do though, and a lot of us won't have that anterior tilt, which is okay. You do not need to be in a hurry to get your legs straight in this position. So we're here for another 10 or 15 seconds. So wherever you are at, just pause there, take a couple of nice deep breaths in, maybe pull your forehead forwards, get that belly onto the thighs. Last 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Slowly lifting yourself up and out of that position. All right, so what we're now going to do, and some of you might feel that you want to do a few little hip swivels in between or come to some circles, is actually, and I'll get Thais to face the camera this time, go into a straddle. So we're going to do a little bit of work here in pancake, okay? So for most of us, this is going to be a fairly limbery thing. I do want you to be very careful with this because what I'm going to be asking you to do is each time you transition your body from one side to the other is pull yourself slightly deeper into a pancake position. If you struggle to sit into a straddle with your back up nice and straight, you may find that you want to pop your hips up onto something like a yoga block or a block or something like that. Yeah, no? Okay, so she's going to choose a leg and she's going to pull her body down over that leg. She's going to reach her fingertips forwards here and just take a nice deep breath in. Now we're going to take our time with this, all right? I'm going to give you plenty of time on the clock to work into your pancake. So from here, she's now going to walk her hands around in front of her. So as she goes, she's transitioning essentially here through pancake and then she's over the other leg. So we're getting hamstring, we're getting adductors. You're also going to be stretching quite a lot through your lower back here. And then when you get to the side, you can pause, take a breath, and then you walk your hands back. Now the intention here is that each time you walk from one side to the other side, you're going slightly further. So your hands are slightly further away from your hips. Now, like I said, just be careful with this. Don't make it too dynamic. I want you to breathe over each leg, take a moment, and then slowly, slowly walking your hands back the other way We're just transitioning ourselves one side to the other. You have about 45 seconds left. Some of you might, in this last little bit of time, feel that you want to go to the center position, which is your pancake position, and really just reach your fingers forwards and draw yourself into that pancake. And again, you're trying to anteriorly tilt your pelvis in that position. And you've got about 10 seconds left, so you might just finish the transition you're on, or perhaps go to that center position and take a breath in and out. And then when you feel ready to come out of that position, I'll just get you to lift your chest up and then slowly make your way out of there. All right, so from there, we are all going to make our way to standing and just do a few little hip circles to loosen off the hips a little bit, the lower back one way and then back the other way. And then I'll get you guys just to grab yourselves a quick drink, and then we're going to move into a hip flexor stretch up against the wall. Hang on, guys, I just got to reset these cameras and then we'll go. That's all right, that's all right. Oh, you just did it. All right, guys, so what we're going to do now is get ourselves into a hip flexor stretch up against the wall. Now, what I might do is I know it's a bit hard to see what Thais is doing, but essentially she's going to come into this position and the back foot's going to be up against the wall, okay? If you would like to, and this is actually my preferred way to do this stretch, is if you have a chair handy, when you're in this position, and I'll get Thais to show us, she's going to come into the stretch and place her elbows onto the bench. So we've got the bench here, but most of you just have a chair or something. So if you can do that, I would like you to, okay? It just allows your body to relax quite a bit into this stretch. If you don't have that, guys, it's fine to place your hands to the floor if you would prefer. All right, so now the back knee is in fairly close to the wall, but you need to be able to go into hip extension. So it's not a quad stretch. We're not here upright with this heel right up against your butt. What you want to be able to do is open this back hip down towards the floor as best you can, okay? So let's just start in that position. And I want you to just take a couple of nice deep breaths in and out of that stretch. Take a nice deep inhale. And as you exhale, just sink your back hip down towards the floor. Looking for my stopwatch, there it is. All right, so at the moment, we have here, Thais has got her right hip in the stretch. Left foot is slightly ahead of the left knee. So I don't want you to have that front foot behind the knee because it makes it a bit awkward. And now you're just going to take some really nice deep breaths into your belly. And as you exhale, I want you just to sink your back hip down towards the floor. Now with hip flexors, we tend to hold a lot of tension in our belly. So take a breath in, close your eyes, and as you exhale, just soften your belly and let your hip open up. Okay, we tend to hold on and we don't allow ourselves to move into that stretch. So just while you're doing these deep relaxing breaths, the contractions. Your first one, your back knee is going to pull forwards through the floor. The second one, you're going to try and push that wall over with your foot, okay? So let's get ready for that first contraction. Take a nice deep breath in. And then you're going to drag your back knee through the floor towards your chest. So off we go for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Pause. Take a breath in and sink your hip towards the floor. So really soften the belly. In this particular stretch, I do encourage you to close your eyes. I do think that it really helps to close your eyes and just breathe into the stretch as best you can. Second contraction, without letting your hips lift up, you're going to try and push that wall over with your foot. So getting ready, and off we go. Let's push the wall down for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Take a nice deep breath in. Exhale, sink your hip towards the floor. And we'll just do another round or two of breath here. So just a couple of breaths, guys. Really closing the eyes, softening your belly, just allowing yourself to be in this hip extension. All right, so when you've finished the breath that you're on in full, you can shift your hips backwards and slowly make your way out of this position. And then we will just set ourselves up on the other side. All right, so let's just transition over to the other side. If you've got the chair, just positioning yourself so you're comfortable. Now, if you're sitting at a desk all day, guys, this is probably one of the most important stretches that you will do today, is because we sit in hip flexion at a desk, okay? So we really need to open up those hips. We need to get into hip extension. So let's set ourselves up and just start with the breathing again. Nice deep breath in. Exhale, sink your back hip down towards the floor, softening your belly, and just allowing yourself to be in this stretch to start with. So at first, it will feel, for some of us, quite grabby, I suppose. It feels like your body wants to recoil out of that position. And that's why we need just to spend some time before we do any contracting, just to calm our nervous system down a little bit and just breathe into that position. So closing the eyes, take a deep breath to the belly, and then visualize your belly relaxing, your hip flexors softening down towards the floor. We have about 10-15 seconds before our first contraction. The first contraction is going to be to pull your knee towards your chest. So getting ready, and let's drag your knee towards your chest for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Stop. Take a nice deep inhale. And as you exhale, soften your back hip down towards the floor. Second contraction, remember, is to push the wall over with that foot. Now, when you do this, don't let your hips lift out of the stretch. So getting ready, let's push down the wall for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Again, pause, take a breath. Allow your hips to soften down towards the floor. And just do a few rounds of breath here. We have about 10 seconds left. Last 3, 2, and 1. Let's just gently shift your hips backwards. Perhaps come to kneeling or standing and just circle off the hips a couple of times. Now, a lot of us are going to feel like after that we need to have a bit of a walk around. It is a long time to spend in that hip flexor stretch. So we will move, I suppose, towards our upper body and our spine a little bit more now. So what we are going to do, and again, we're going to use for this particular stretch today, a bench or a chair, okay? So, because Thais has no idea what I'm about to ask her to do, I'll just quickly show you, right? So I'm going to come into this position, forearm up onto the bench, and we're pressing our shoulder down towards the floor. So if you can find yourself a chair, now if you really don't have something to use to set this up, then you could do this on a door frame from standing, okay? Here in this position, we have gravity that's going to assist us a little bit, okay? Now, in this position, the positioning is a little bit dependent on your flexibility. Thais is quite flexible here. I do want her to try not to arch or extend through her spine quite too much. Forearm and hand is on the bench and her elbow is in line with her shoulder. And for her, she's got her left arm up here on the bench. She's pressing her left shoulder towards the floor. Her right elbow is on the floor and it's just sort of supporting her in this position, okay? So make yourself comfortable here, and again, doing a couple of breaths, all right? So the same sort of deal with the stretching. We're breathing into it. We're holding the passive stretch. We will then do a couple of contractions here. Now, some of you might find as well that you need a yoga block for the bottom arm. You need something else to make you more comfortable here because perhaps you're not as flexible as Tay is in this position. So guys, just keep breathing through it. Our contraction is going to be just to press your entire forearm down into the bench, okay? Or through the door frame if you're standing. So getting ready. Let's contract everything first and then static contraction, push your arm into the bench for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Stop. Take a nice deep breath in and just allow that shoulder to sink down a little deeper into that stretch. And we're going to do one more of those. So let's flex the arm and push down. Off we go for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Pause. Take a breath into that position. And we have last 5 seconds or so breathing here, allowing your chest to open. All right, let's slowly lift ourselves up and out of there. Perhaps roll that shoulder off a couple of times. I'm just going to move this bench here, please. All right, so guys, we are now going to set ourselves up on the other side. So again, we're having a passive stretch first, just breathing into it. We are then going to contract. You might notice one side feels different to the other. If you get any pinching in this position, you don't push yourself into that pinch. You find a stretch where that pinch does not occur, okay? Now, I just noticed Tay has adjusted her back. She was extended through her spine, and she just tucked in a little bit to try to avoid this, all right? So that's what I want you guys to do as well. Just check your elbow is in line with the shoulder, and you're just taking a couple of nice deep breaths here. And as you exhale, you're just allowing the front of the shoulder to soften down towards the floor, just breathing into that stretch. Now, a little bit like our hip flexors, guys, how I said it's one of the most important things you can do if you're sat at the desk all day. This one too, because we open the chest, and what tends to happen is we tend to slouch and round our shoulders forwards when we're sat at our desk. And this is just allowing all of that tissue to open up. All right, so from there, we're going to do our contractions in just a moment where we're going to push our arm through the bench. So getting ready and off we go. Let's push down for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Pause. Take a really deep breath in. And exhale. Press your shoulder down towards the floor. And we're going to just do one more of those. So check with your spine before you contract. Squeeze everything and push your arm down. Off we go for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And again, deep inhale. Exhale, soften into that position. And then finishing the round of breath that you're on, slowly transitioning out, lifting your chest up, always moving slowly out of our stretches, and just rolling your shoulder off a couple of times. All right, so now using whatever you were just using, the chair or the bench or the couch or whatever, we are going to go into a stretching cat. Now, I can't see everyone there, but if you weren't using a bench, you might just go stretching cat on the floor. Ty's is going to demo on the bench, but you could put your hands on the floor if you don't have something to lift your hands up onto. All right? So when we're in this position, Thais has immediately set herself up where she's in shoulder flexion with her hands directly above her shoulders. Some of you don't have that range of movement. That's fine. You'll just take your hands a bit wider if you can. Okay? So it's up to you to set that up. Now, in this position, knees are underneath the hips. I want you to, again, just suck in your belly button and try not to use your lumbar spine here, okay? We're trying to open the shoulders, not the back, all right? She's now pressing her armpits down towards the floor, and then I'm actually going to get us to limber. So she's pressing down, and then she's lifting up. So she's essentially moving in and out of the stretch. So I'm going to get you guys to do the same. You're just pressing the armpits down and then lifting the armpits up. And I just want you to work through that, pressing down and lifting up. And just explore this, because for some of us, this is quite pinchy and tight. If you do get a pinch in the shoulder, the things that I want you to try first is the wider hands if you can, or rotate your palms to face in towards each other so your pinky finger is on the bench. That gives you a bit of an external rotation at the shoulder, and for a lot of us, that gets rid of the pinch. The other thing you might want to do is Taze, notice she's just transitioned because for her, she feels better here on the floor, okay? So we can explore all these options. So whichever option you're using, I now want you to press your armpits towards the floor and just hold in that position. Remember, suck your belly button in, try not to arch your lower back, and we're just going to take a couple of breaths here, breathing into that stretch. Last 10. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Lifting up and slowly coming out. So I'm just going to get her now to roll her shoulders off a couple of times. So guys, what we are going to do now is work our shoulders. We did an external rotation on the bench just a moment ago for the shoulder. We're going to work, if we can, into an internal rotation for the shoulder, and it's going to put what feels like your traps on stretch. It's actually a lot of stretch for one of your rotator cuff muscles, okay? So I'm actually going to get Taze to face the wall for this so you can see what she's doing. So Taze is going to face the wall. She doesn't know what I'm about to ask her to do, so bear with us, guys. All right, so she's now going to take her right hand behind her back with her palm facing away, okay? And I'm going to give an alternative. If this is painful in your shoulder, you may not be able to necessarily come into this position, okay? She's now going to take her left hand and guide her head to the side. So she's take her left hand, yep, and she's just guided her head to the side here. Now, if you get a sharp pinching sensation in this shoulder that's sitting in an internal rotation, unfortunately, you probably need to just come out of this position and just be here, reaching this hand down and feeling the stretch like this. It's a much gentler version, okay? Otherwise, we've got the hand behind the back with the palm facing away. Now, in this position, she wants to lift her jaw up towards the sky and depress her shoulder down away from her ear. And then very, very gently tilt your head a little forwards and a little back. And you're going to notice what feels like a really strong stretch for most of us into what we perceive as our traps stretching. And yes, your traps are stretching here, but at one of your rotator cuff muscles, your supraspinatus under there, is also on stretch because we have our shoulder in this internal rotation. So I don't want you to be too aggressive with this one. I just want you to explore it. And then I just want, once you've found a bit of a stretch after that sort of limber and that moving around, I want you then to just pause in that position and just very softly breathe here. We're just breathing, we're not contracting, just breathing into that stretch. And we'll have about 10, 15 seconds longer here. Again, I don't want you to make this too intense. For some of us, this can feel really, really strong, and we just want to take it fairly gently. To come out of this position, what you're going to do is just slowly start to lift your shoulder towards your ear and lift your head up really slowly to transition out. That shoulder that was sitting in the internal rotation, just bring it out and roll your shoulder off a couple of times. So just perhaps a couple of circles there. And then we'll go over to the other side. So you're going to take, for Taze, she's taking her left hand behind her back with her palm facing away. Free hand is just guiding the head to the side. Once you're here, you lift through the jaw and you depress the shoulder away from your ear. And then you think about gently exploring. So tilt the head a little bit forwards, a little bit back, and decide which position here is giving you the best stretch. And then I want you to pause in that position and just take a couple of nice deep breaths in, lifting through the jaw, dropping the shoulder down. Can be quite strong. We have about 10 or 15 seconds just breathing into that position. Last 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Very slowly lift the shoulder, lift the head, roll the shoulders a couple of times. All right. So guys, we are going to now go again into a couple more things for the spine. We're going to go seated rotation. So I'll get Thais now to flip around facing the camera with her legs out in front. And maybe you want to follow the cues, because there's a few cues here, you want to follow the same side that she's going to do. And let's remember that Thais is pregnant as well. So just listen to the cues, guys. So she's going to take her right foot to the outside of her left knee. She's going to take her right hand behind her. So that was right foot to the outside of the left knee, right hand behind you, like a kickstand on a bike. This left hand, to create some length through the spine, she's going to reach up. Okay, now she's going to drop that elbow to the outside of the knee. Now for Thais, because she might not have the same range, she might feel more comfortable just using her forearm and giving herself a little bit more space, okay? But that's up to you to decide. You can get in as tight into this as you feel comfortable. Now, I want you to work with the breath in this rotation. So every time you breathe in, lengthen up through the top of your head. Every time you exhale, rotate by levering your elbow onto your knee and rotating and looking over the back of your shoulder. And we're just going to work here for about another 45 seconds from now, just breathing into this rotation. Nice deep breath in, lengthen up, exhale, rotate. Now, you might notice how restricted your breathing feels while you're in this position, and that's normal. You'll also notice that the breath in itself stretches in some weird little spots in and amongst your ribs, into your upper back, and it does feel quite nice to take that breath in. You have about 15 seconds left. Maybe you want to increase that rotation one more time. All right, and then we'll just finish the breath we're on. Very slowly just come out of that twist. All right, straighten the legs out in front. Maybe give them a little bit of a wiggle off. And now we'll go the other side. So she's going to take her left knee to the outside of the right, left foot, sorry, to the outside of the right knee. She's going to take her left hand behind. Right hand reaches to create length. And then you drop that elbow to the outside of the knee. So if you're unsure, guys, just check that you've got opposite knee to elbow. That's the main thing, opposite knee to elbow. Okay? And now we take a breath in, lengthen up, exhale, rotate. And we're going to be here for about 45 seconds, just breathing, increasing on the out breath. So we increase by doing a couple of things. Levering our elbow on our knee, pulling our back shoulder back into a stronger twist and looking over that back shoulder as well. And then we just breathe into it. So like I said before, you might notice that the breathing is restricted. The other thing you may now be aware of is that you actually rotate one way better than the other. So it feels more comfortable on one side than on the other side, which is really common. We have about just over 10 seconds left, so that might be just one more full inhale, exhale. Last 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Slowly. All right, so from there, guys, you might want to take legs out in front. You might want to do a couple little kind of loose rotations side to side. From this seated position, we are going to do just a final stretch in spinal flexion. So what I'll get Thais to do is turn side on. So if she sits on a bum, stay on your bum. Sit onto your bum. With your legs out in front. Oh. All right, so from here, she's going to bend her knees. And then she's going to basically cuddle her legs, all right? Now, the grip that I like for this, guys, if you can see, I take one hand and I hold my wrist like this, okay? And then from here, she's going to tuck her chin and round through her spine, tuck her tail under. So you're thinking posterior pelvic tilt, and you're trying to create a C shape with your spine as best you can, so the letter C. So tucking the tail, pushing the scapula's back, all right? So you want to be in this very rounded position here. Take a nice deep breath in, and as you exhale, really push between the space between your shoulder blades. So this space here is where most of us will be experiencing the strongest stretch. That is your rhomboids predominantly stretching and your sort of mid to lower traps, okay? Now, the other benefit to this stretch is that we're trying to take our lumbar spine into flexion as well, okay? That's really important because a lot of us, especially when we start at the desk, we get locked in this little back bend, okay? And we actually want to take the spine the other way, right? So let's just breathe into that again. There's no contracting here. We're just going to have about another 30 to 45 seconds. Just deep breath in, keep posteriorly tilting your pelvis, keep pressing back between your shoulder blades. Chin stays tucked. Noticing as well that when you do take that deep breath in, just like in our rotation, you will feel the stretch increases a little between the shoulder blades. Last 10. Last 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Slowly transition out of there. Release the grip. Perhaps lift your chest up, roll your shoulders back. And wherever you are, I want you to now make your way to a child's pose position where we're just going to do a couple of breaths and we'll have our hands underneath our forehead like a little pillow. So you can take your knees wide. You can cross your hand one over the top of the other and then just use your hands like a little pillow for your forehead. And in this position, I now, as silly as it sounds, want you to breathe into your lower back. So you're just going to take a couple of really deep breaths in, feel your lower back stretch out a little bit. And as you exhale, visualize your lower back relaxing. So I just want you to imagine that all of that tissue through the lower back is softening. And you're doing a really long, slow exhalation. And you're just going to do a couple of breaths like that. Nice deep breath in. Exhale, softening through the lower back. So I just want you to finish the round of breath that you're on there, guys. And once you've done that, we can make our way out of that position. Thanks to Thais. She's never quite sure what I'm going to ask her to do. Have a lovely day. Thank you, guys. Awesome. Well done.